adolescent.
The teenager, a now familiar phase of human development wedged between childhood and adulthood, a span of 5 or 6 years where we're told to focus on discovering who we are, culturally, sexually, individually, through rebellion and pop culture. But there was a time when this phase didn't exist. You were a child, then an adult. Then something changed. A word was created. A lifestyle, a market, an identity. To understand where the teenager came from, we have to go back, not just to the end of childhood, but to the end of a war. World War II had left the American psyche battered, but the homeland untouched. America's factories stood tall, and its economy was primed for a boom unlike anything before it. Soldiers returned home to newfound peace and were met with the GI Bill, cheap housing, cheap credit, and the rise of the suburbs. This led to the baby boom. Over 76 million children born between 1946 and 1964. A generation of humans born not into struggle, but into convenience. For the first time in modern history, the average working class family had disposable income, and more importantly, their children had leisure time. And when there is time and money, there is opportunity, not just for business, but for influence.
The 75-cent rule.
The 75-cent rule, I don't believe I ever heard of that one.
Well, and that's what I figured. What it is, Pa, is that nowadays kids get 75 cents a week allowance instead of 25 cents.
75 cents? That's a lot of money. And in a year's time, that'd come to, see, there's 52 weeks in a year.
It comes to around $40 a year.
That's an awful lot of money for a young.
They get it, Pa.
They do, huh?
And they don't have to work for it like I do.
The child was no longer just growing up. The child was now a market.
New Ford.
It was at this moment in American history that something unnatural occurred. The invention of a new class of human identity. Something previously unnamed. The teenager.
It's hard to grow up. If a teenager has extra problems, emotional or social, it's even harder.
This wasn't just a label. It was a weaponized identity, engineered by advertising agencies in lockstep with the rise of the American intelligence and media consolidation. Newly formed outlets like the Advertising Research Foundation and early contractors for the CIA, including psychological operatives from the OSS, understood that the teenage brain, stuck between the rule-following childhood and the conformity of adulthood, was ripe for suggestion. Suggestion seeded through rhythm, rebellion, and resonance. CIA was no stranger to cultural engineering. Through Operation Mockingbird, the agency seeded ideas, archetypes, and even entire musical movements through front companies, agents within Hollywood, and allied ad firms.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
And here's the part they don't teach in marketing school. This wasn't just about selling bubblegum and records. This was about severing the child from the family, about turning the home into a war zone of values, about replacing the parent with pop idols, the elders with edgy anti-heroes, and community with consumerism. The first real teenage advertising campaigns didn't sell products, they sold emotions. Alienation, rebellion, sexual identity, tribalism. And through those emotions, an entirely new class of humans was born, not by biology, but by design.
Once the teenager existed, the hunt began. Not to guide, not to nurture, but to capture.
Now it's Pepsi for those who think young.
And what better way to capture a mind than to hand it a mirror shaped like a guitar, a leather jacket, a Coke bottle, or a concert ticket. Rebellion was sold as cool, but never dangerous to the system. The goal wasn't to burn it down, just to buy from a different department. The systems of control had learned that they didn't need to repress youth. They just had to define youth for them. Every record spun became a ritual. Every mall purchase, a rite of passage. Every product, song, and ad mapped to a demographic, a frequency, a desire.
This is the Institute for Motivational Research, a place devoted to the intriguing business of finding out why people behave as they do, why they buy as they do, why they respond to advertising as they do. And this is Dr. Ernest Dichter.
We don't go out and ask directly, why do you buy, why don't you? What we try to do instead is to understand the total personality, the self-image of the customer. We use all the resources of modern social sciences. It opens up some stimulating psychological techniques for selling any new product.
By the 1960s, the teenager was no longer just a target audience. They were the engine of culture itself, not because they took it, but because it was handed to them. But by the 60s, the formula had evolved. The teenage target was older now, war-aware and emotionally raw. Peace and love were catchy slogans, but the same machine was behind the tie-dye curtains. The Summer of Love was half music festival, half psychological experiment. Free love wasn't free, and wasn't really organic love. The drug wave, the awakening, many believe it began with truth seekers, but many more don't realize how tightly intelligence agencies were watching and guiding the trip. All the while, the familial bond only continues to take a further and further back seat to this manufactured teenage popular culture, which will only become more dark and more pervasive. Then came the 1970s, a decade of fallout. Vietnam horror, the Manson cult, Watergate betrayal. The utopia had collapsed, but rebellion mutated into cynicism.
All the animals come out at night. Whores, skunk pussies, buggers, queens, fairies, dopers, junkies. Sick, venal. Someday a real rain will come and wash all this scum off the streets.
Youth culture splintered. Punk, disco, funk, metalheads, but emotional targeting turned from hope into hurt. High schools fed cable TV and drug culture into the same veins. Teen identity was now fully tribal. You had the punks picking safety pins and hair dye, the hippies buying beads and bell-bottoms, the glam kids in glitter suits, each one marketed, packaged, and sold.
Dolomite is my name, and fucking up motherfuckers is my game.
The message: be angry, be different, be separate, and we have just the right stuff to sell you from separate stores and magazines to show everyone just how angry and different you are. Then, in the 1980s, came the full-on emotional assault.
First there were stereo viewers.
Wow.
Then there were stereo recordings.
Wow.
Now stereo TV.
Wow.
MTV. Music television.
MTV made the fragment visible. Music was no longer just sound. It was a lifestyle brand, a religion, a ticket, a uniform.
She's the only one that we can look up to nowadays. She doesn't condemn femininity.
When you wear metallic clothes, everybody looks at you, right?
Everybody stares and says, look at that girl over there.
She's pretty and I like her.
The anger of punk, the hypersexuality of pop, the violence of hip-hop, the alienation of grunge. They were all funnels, channels we could buy into, depths we could never escape. The teenager was never meant to rebel against the machine. Just buy from a different part of it. By the 1980s, the experiment no longer hid behind subtlety. The teenager had been captured, marketed, fragmented.
Music, television, video music, 24 hours a day.
Now, they were broadcast. MTV was the megaphone, and every video was a sermon.
Call your cable company and say I want my MTV!
These weren't just songs, they were emotional triggers.
What do you want to do with your life? I want to rock.
Humiliation of parents became comedy. Sexuality became spectacle. Rebellion became routine. And while executives cashed in, a deeper project revealed itself. Not just profit, but programming.
Acid rain. Drug addiction. International terrorism. Freeway killers. Now, more than ever,
it is important to remember the true meaning
of Christmas. Don't miss Charles Dickens' immortal classic, Scrooge. Your life might just depend on it.
The teenage mind had been mapped. Desire, rage, alienation, defiance. Each one could be targeted. Each one could be monetized. But more than that, each one could be weaponized.
Well, that used to be true. Not anymore, Mom. I'm an adult now. I got 18 years under this belt.
Pop culture didn't help to guide the teenager into adulthood.
Buckle up, son. It's the real world out here.
It arrested them into endless cycles of adolescence. Always angry. Always lustful. Always consuming. Never maturing.
There's no need to argue. Parents just don't understand.
The family was no longer the model. The brand was. The idol was.
You're the Pepsi generation.
The screen was. The television wasn't the only transmitter. The movie theater became a classroom, and the lessons were clear. Sex, drugs, and rebellion weren't just normal, they were entertaining. In the 1980s, the teen movie boom exploded.
Here we are with Howie Deutsch, Mr. John Hughes, respectively the director of the film and the producer and writer of the film. Good evening, fellas.
Good evening.
How are you? You've got 3 films in a row that deal with the subject matter of teenagers and young people. Why this subject so often for you?
Well, I'm getting good at it. That's part of the reason. I'm continuing. I don't know, I'm just very interested in it, you know. It was an important part of my, a period of my life, and I have good recall of it. And I like doing it. I like working with young actors. I like to use music a lot, and you know, it's a very receptive audience.
Your background was advertising, videos. As a matter of fact, you might want to tell some of the people some of the videos you've done in the past. Maybe they've seen them.
My background was doing movie trailers, and then I did some music videos with Stuart Copeland and
Don't Box Me In.
Right. Billy Idol, Billy Joel.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High made teenage sex and drug use a punchline. Porky's turned voyeurism and humiliation into comedy.
Risky Business showed the teenager thriving through prostitution and crime. Even The Breakfast Club, the decade's most beloved teen film, presented parents as clueless, teachers as villains, and the rebellion as identity. Meanwhile, Hollywood loosened the locks.
First time in 16 years, the movie industry may be on the verge of changing its rating code. Denise Koch says due in part to public outrage at the excessive violence in 2 summer movies rated PG, there may soon be a new rating, PG
13.
PG-13.
That's right. Well, if the new rating goes into effect, Jerry, a child under the age of 13 will not be allowed to enter a movie rated PG-13 unless they are accompanied by an adult.
Still, the new rating is only a guideline. It simply suggests some material may be inappropriate for younger children, but it does not restrict their entry into a PG-13 film.
It's not restrictive because there's no way really to enforce it when you think about it. These youngsters in that age don't have a ID card, they don't have a driver's license, so it's purely an attempt to call special attention to parents and caution that this material may be too intense.
For this reason, industry observers say the new rating has no meaning unless parents use it to determine what their kids will see.
Rating system shifted. Nudity, gore, profanity, once restricted, now marketed directly at adolescents. What was once forbidden was sold as freedom. And again, the effect, division. Teens versus parents. Teens versus teachers. Teens versus themselves. On screen, high school wasn't about learning, it was about tribes. The jock, the stoner, the rebel, the outcast. Every identity reinforced, every division deepened. Drugs and sex were no longer scandals, they were punchlines, they were rituals. And once the audience laughed, the culture had accepted them as normal. While movies loosened their grip on violence and nudity, the music industry staged its own performance. In 1985, Tipper Gore and the Parents Music Resource Center dragged rock stars into Senate hearings. The industry positioned itself as the defender of free expression. The government framed it as protecting children, and what emerged was the now familiar black and white sticker, Parental Advisory, explicit lyrics. But this wasn't protection. There was no enforcement. The burden fell back on parents, already cast as the enemy in every movie, song, and video their kids consumed.
Then what choice does a parent have? To sit down and listen to every song on the album?
Well, if they're really concerned about it, I think that they have to.
Do you think that's reasonable to expect parents to do that?
Being a parent isn't a reasonable thing. It's a very hard thing. I'm a parent and I know.
And to the teenager, the sticker wasn't a warning. It was a beacon, a mark of rebellion, a promise that the record inside held the very thing that their parents and the system didn't want them to have. The same machine that sold division within the family now sold itself as the hero of freedom. Unaccountable, unapologetic.
If I had a 10-year-old, I probably would prefer that he see something else.
I'm a parent and I know.
In the end,
None of these new labels or ratings helped to protect the child. They just helped to brand the product.
A John Hughes film.
A very receptive audience.
It's purely sexual.
By the 1990s, the message had grown darker. The glamour of the 80s gave way to despair. Music didn't just sell rebellion, it sold hopelessness. Grunge told the teenager, "You are broken."
Hey, can I wear that flannel shirt?
We're not against rap. We're not against rappers. But we are against those thugs.
Hip-hop told the teenager, "You are at war."
Too much television watching got me chasing dreams.
Rave culture told the teenager, "Escape is the only way out."
Change it.
MTV continued to amplify every emotion and every genre to its inevitable end. Feeding anger, desire, despair.
He was killed by an apparently self-inflicted blast to the head by a 12-gauge shotgun.
And escape back into the loop.
Okay, so it says, and the title of the letter is The Secret Meeting That Changed Rap Music and Destroyed a Generation.
Damn.
So it says, hello. After more than 20 years, I finally decided to tell the world what I witnessed in 1991, which I believe was one of the biggest turning points in popular music and ultimately American society. Between the late 80s and early 90s, I was what you may call a decision maker with one of the more established companies in the music industry. This may explain why in early 1991, I was invited to attend a closed-door meeting with a small group of business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Little did I know we would be asked to participate in one of the most unethical and destructive business practices ever seen. Speaking of those I knew, we joked about the theme of the meeting, as many of us did not care for rap and failed to see the purpose of being invited to a private meeting to discuss the future of hip-hop.
Talk to him.
Among the attendees was a small group of unfamiliar faces who stayed to themselves and made no attempt to socialize beyond their circle. Based on their behavior and formal appearances, they didn't seem to be from our industry. Our casual chatter was interrupted when we were asked to sign a confidentiality agreement preventing us from publicly discussing the information presented during the meeting. Needless to say, this intrigued, in some cases, disturbed many of us. The agreement was only a page long, but very clear on matters and consequences, which stated that violating the terms would result in job termination immediately. At this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable in the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went on to tell us that the respective companies we represented had invested in a very profitable industry, which could become even more rewarding with our active involvement.
Damn.
He explained that the companies we worked for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons, and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. Someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with music. We were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more the government would pay these prisons. It was also made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. He told us that since our employees had become silent investors in this prison business, it was now in their interest to make sure that these prisons remain filled. Our job would be to help make this happen by making music which promote criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for our companies, and as employees, we'd also be able to buy stocks in these prisons.
With cable TV in nearly every home, the old broadcast rules collapsed. What could never air in the 70s was now routine. Profanity,
Hold on, jackass!
sex,
The ladies were proud to be part of a show that was called Revolutionary.
It's really giving voice to a subject that hasn't had a lot of voice in the past, which is women's sexuality.
But Sarah Jessica was concerned some of the risque storylines would upset viewers.
Sometimes I worry, are we going to offend people? Is this vulgar or is it funny? Is this lewd or is it whimsical and silly and clever and sophisticated? So you worry about things because I've never, ever read anything like this in my life.
It was just like, I can't believe they're actually putting this on television.
Do you know why I'm so lucky?
Why?
How many girls get to have sex for the first time with someone they love?
I don't know. I've never really taken an opinion poll.
and violence played nightly in living rooms.
I wanted your opinion. I'd beat it out of you.
Cartoons laughed at stupidity. Sitcoms mocked parents openly.
Then what do we need a meeting for? You're the dad, just tell us what to do.
Well, that would be one approach. But, Al, a family is a democracy, and so we're going to have a nice open discussion.
Carol's making you do this, isn't she?
Yes, she is.
Guys, anyways, writing poetry is kind of fun, you know? You get to be creative and expressive.
I don't want to be expressive. I couldn't care less about poetry. I just want to graduate high school so I can get on with my life, so I can get a job and get out of this hellhole town.
Darker dramas made anti-heroes into idols.
Whose side are you on?
I take no side.
You're skating the edge.
I am the edge.
What you truly want, only I can give.
You can't give it, can't even buy it, and you just don't get it.
Movies mirrored the shift. The glossy sex comedies of the 80s gave way to nihilism.
Nihilism. Fuck me. I mean, say what you want about the tenets of National Socialism, dude. At least it's an ethos.
The violence was harsher. The language was sharper.
Ooh! Check some MILF. What the hell is that?
MILF. Mom, I'd like to fuck.
Yeah!
The themes darker. The line between mainstream and underground blurred. And again, we see the same pattern emerging. What was once shocking became entertainment.
Hot. They're hot. Totally. I'm not saying, I believe in mass murder or that shit, but don't get us wrong. Yeah, we respect human life and all. But if I was a mass murderer, I'd be Mickey and Mallory.
All of it carefully packaged. All of it distributed through expanding cable networks, record labels, and marketing firms. Backed by the same intelligence link systems that had been studying the teenage psychology since the 1950s.
When you enter the main lobby of our building, on the right wall is the agency's motto, and it's from the book of John, and it says, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free." And that really is quite simply, fundamentally, what CIA does each and every day.
In 1996, the CIA's Entertainment Liaison Office in Hollywood began offering free support to movies that featured the agency. Chase Brandon, an intelligence agent and cousin of actor Tommy Lee Jones, was the CIA's first liaison officer. He's credited as a technical advisor on a host of Hollywood blockbusters, such as The Recruit, starring Al Pacino as a veteran CIA officer.
Our failures are known, our successes are not.
In reality, Brandon was far more than a mere advisor on The Recruit. He helped pitch the film to Disney, that eventually produced and distributed the movie, and was involved in the script writing.
The Recruit. Who are you? Really?
Really? I am just a figment of your imagination.
And now, for the first time, those teenagers of the 50s and 60s had become parents themselves. Parents who had been sold on the idea of teenage rebellion as a sacred rite of passage. The self-replication of manufactured independence was complete. A cycle where families unconsciously pass down the very ideals designed to separate them.
You can't do that, he'd hate us. He's a teenager, he's supposed to hate us.
Did you see the way he was dressed?
What's wrong with it?
You hear that language?
Oh, we used slang when we were kids. Do you remember our first date? You took one look at me and you said, "Vivian, that is a bad dress." Now, you could have just said it was a good dress.
You see it in the city, in the country, even on the basketball court. It's called sagging, wearing pants that sag around the hips, sink between the legs, and crinkle over the shoes. Black kids, white kids, all kinds of kids are doing it. Ask where the style originates, you'll get a lot of answers. Some say it comes from California surfers and skateboarders. Others say the sag is inspired by that behind bars look from jail, where prisoners aren't allowed to wear belts. Still others point to rappers and hip-hop style.
Make sure that these prisons remain filled.
It's more than a uniform. It's more than like listening to the music and having a look. It's sort of a way. It's a way of life. It's a culture for some people.
And while parents fought shadows, the lyrics, the clothing, the slang, the deeper victory had already been won.
It's a way of expressing my sadness towards the whole world more than anything.
The family no longer defined the child. The culture industry did. By the end of the century, the teenager had been crafted into a permanent class, a consumer identity.
Yes, you guys got me some Chico's. Oh, these are nice.
A manipulated population arrested into endless adolescence. Alienated from family, spirituality, and community.
Mom, don't touch me! Don't touch my hair! She's out of control. Have you had anything to eat today? Mom, stop with the food thing already!
Fuck it! You don't want me to cook for you anymore? Fine, then don't eat my food.
Fine! I hate your nasty store-brand food anyway!
Great! Then I can stop doing 12 haircuts a day trying to pay for all this shit!
This was never only about money. It was about control, and the mask was slipping.
Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven, is that it?
Why not? I'm here on the ground with my nose in it since the whole thing began. I've nurtured every sensation man has been inspired to have. I cared about what he wanted, and I never judged him. Why? Because I never rejected him. In spite of all his imperfections, I'm a fan of man! I'm a humanist. Maybe the last humanist. Who, in their right mind, Kevin, could possibly deny the 20th century was entirely mine? All of it, Kevin! All of it. Mine. I'm peeking. It's my time now.
The most power-hungry minds of the early 20th century understood a simple truth. If you shape the youth, you shape the future. Indoctrination wasn't always done with whips and chains. It was done with songs, screens, and stories.
We are the children, builders of the future, and we the children swear to thee loyal immersion. We are the youth of the nation. We are.
By the late 20th century, corporations had perfected the trick. They no longer needed to bind young people by force. Instead, they sold them the chains of their choosing. Identity wrapped in fashion, music, and movies.
That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
All through the lens of base emotions that can only be fulfilled through external, short-term pleasures. What began as a teenage fad calcified into adulthood, until the very symbols of control became the core of who they thought they were. As the century closed, the television wasn't alone anymore. The screen was multiplying. In the corner of the living room, glowing beige towers hummed and buzzed.
What is internet anyway?
Internet is that massive computer network, the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
And though the entertainment industry had already proven itself as an efficient tool of alienation and separation, the depths we were about to open before us were beyond anything we could ever imagine.
These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is.